My name is David Brown. I have a blog called The Trendy Troodon, and I've been getting into YouTube. This will be my second attempt at a movie review. I'll be talking about a movie called Soul Survivor from about 1983. Some dates go either 1982 or 1984. It was definitely first released in the end of 1983. Here you can see the box and the back of it and the side. Now, I'm going to try to keep this short, so I won't be going into the depth. I have some other places I've already written about this. The main thing I will say, I have a huge collection of zombie movies, and I watch enough that the ones I don't already have are mostly the ones that I either watched and don't want to own, or that nobody can get hold of. And this is one of my favorites of all time. There's a few that are higher: Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. This definitely in the top 5, even the top 3 after those two. And it's a very, very strange zombie movie, which I'll get to. One thing I'll say that I didn't cover as much elsewhere, it was written and directed by a guy named Tom Eberhardt. Eberhardt won't confirm the pronunciation. He was a director who was kind of at war with the mainstream. He did stuff that was indie. He also still did stuff that was mainstream, but you can really tell he was struggling at it. He's a little bit like Bob Clark, who started in horror and then directed things like A Christmas Story. Some of the other things he did, Eberhardt that is, he directed and wrote Night of the Comet, which is also kind of a zombie movie. And one that people seem to have forgotten about that was a little bit later is called Without a Clue. It's actually a Sherlock Holmes parody, and the whole setup of the parody is that Sherlock Holmes is an idiot and Watson is doing all the work. I actually remember seeing that way, way back in the 90s. I thought it was good then. So far, I just haven't had the heart to see it again and see if I still feel that way or not. So going back to this movie, the whole plot is that a woman survives a plane crash. Then she starts seeing people following her, threatening her, who never say anything, and a lot of the time aren't really doing anything. And what gets revealed is that these are undead bodies who have come back to life and are trying to kill her, or building up to killing her. So it's really like Final Destination with zombies, only from more than a decade before Final Destination. There's some arguments. There's people who say Final Destination ripped this off. But there's also plenty of evidence that this ripped off other movies, especially a really weird old movie called Carnival of Souls. I might actually do that one on its own, either as a video or review or both. This, though, it has a balance between the zombie genre and more traditional horror. The big thing, there's absolutely no question that the undead are supernatural in origin, but it's still deconstructionist, so there's no real explanation what's causing it or really why they're after this one person. And I think that works. It's like if you had the Terminator, only you don't have Kyle Reese to explain why it wants Sarah Connor. Maybe somehow they're doing what's in the greater good. We just don't know. And there's two things that are interesting and kind of funny about the undead. Well, funny in a very dark way. One is there's only one or two, maybe three of them at any one time. And what happens is that they'll go on their mission, see if they can kill or corner the lady, and then whether they've succeeded or failed at what they were doing, they go back to where they were, either where they died or where the body was being stored, and just go back to being dead. And another thing, they, as I've said, might have a good reason for what they do, but they aren't really picky. So they end up killing several people who were not part of the original plan. And again, why, we don't know. Maybe they were getting in the way. One or two, they might have known something and gotten killed off for that. So basically, they accept collateral damage. And one more thing that's funny about this movie, and this really is funny, they have a character who's an Undertaker who kind of figures things out, and they had an actor, I'm sure I have him listed in material I'll link to from here, so I won't give his name right now or try to. He keeps saying that he's finding bodies with the blood pulled in like they were standing up, and at one point he actually says, "For all I know, they were walking around." Now, going back to the undead, what really works here is that these are low-tech even compared to early Romero, like Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead. There's virtually no makeup, and what works about that is just that they completely blend in. So they'll be walking around, the lady will see them, but nobody else really notices them or reacts to them, and a lot of the time they won't do much more than stand and stare. And that can be very effective. It's really old school horror, like what you might have gotten in the 50s or even the 30s. So a lot of atmosphere, admittedly not much action, but these guys are still incredibly creepy. One of the stories about this, for one of the undead, they actually got someone who was blind, and he is one, if he was correctly identified, as one of the creepiest ones of all. They also have real tactics. At one point, there's even something a little more like Final Destination, where one of them gets the lady's attention when she's just getting out of the hospital, and while she's looking at the zombie, it's actually a little girl with water dripping off her. So while she's looking at the zombie, an ambulance or a truck has its parking brake malfunction and almost runs right over her in slow motion. Yes, and it's a little unfortunately that they didn't do a little more with that, having inanimate objects be part of the plan. That would have been closer to Final Destination, uh, and it might have made things better, but they already were doing fine with just the undead. So, the thing about this movie, it's not easy to find. Sure, you can find it on YouTube, but it's not the same as having it on disc, and this is hard to find. At one point, this was one of the most valuable discs in my collection. The price has leveled off a bit. Now, if you're looking in the right place, you can find it for pretty cheap, like $10 to $20. Definitely not more than 30. But you should try to be careful what you're doing. The best option might be to go with a foreign Blu-ray, though then you have to be a bit careful. Just that you get a disc that's going to play in whatever equipment you have. So again, this is Final Destination. I'd say I've said what I want to say. Anything else I've already written about, so you can link to that from here. So I'm signing out for now. And thanks for everyone in on this.